Welcome to this video, which is the introduction to bearings. Now, bearings are a part of maths where we're looking at angles, and I'll explain how we use those angles. But bearings are an area of maths that quite often people can make really silly mistakes on, even if they fully understand the topic. The reason for that quite often is because it feels like the topic's quite easy, but then we miss out key bits that we need to remember. So I need your full attention throughout this video. Before we start, I'm just going to remind us of one key angle rule we're going to be using today. So I've had a situation like this, and a question asked me to find the value of x. Hopefully we can see straight away that I need to do 360 take away 50, and I'd get 310 degrees. And I could say if I needed to give a reason, that's because angles around a point sum to 360. Okay, we'll be using this angle rule today, so it's really important that we remember it. Now, let's talk about what a bearing is. Okay, and I want you to imagine a situation where you and your friend are standing near each other. Okay, let's imagine this is on a playground or in a field, and you can see your friend can see you. But someone asks you to describe where your friend is in relation to you. So where someone asks you to describe where your friend is in relation to you. Now, this obviously is a challenge, something that you'll have to try. And most people's immediate thoughts would be, right, I can measure this distance, and so I'll be able to say that my friend is, I don't know, let's say 5 meters from me, for instance. But unfortunately, if I couldn't see the situation, I wouldn't know where your friend was in relation to you. 5 meters from you is a lot of different places. There's lots of other places that are 5 meters from you. And so I need some more information to be able to pinpoint where your friend is. Okay. Now, what we can do is provide an angle. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is draw the north line. Okay, so I have a line that points directly north. And once we've got that line, we can use this angle here, okay, this angle here as an indication to find your friend. Okay. So using this angle and using this using the distance, we can pinpoint exactly where something is in relation to you. And this is what a bearing does. Okay, this angle is the bearing. Okay. The bearing tells us the direction from you to something else, or from a point to something else. Okay. It's from this point to your friend. Okay. And there's 3 key rules. The first is that bearings are always measured from north. You'll see this angle goes from north. Okay. They are always measured clockwise. I have not started moving this way around. Okay, I'm only moving clockwise. That's the key bearing. And lastly, they're always written with 3 digits. Now, this can seem a bit strange, but what that means is that 30 degrees would be written as 030 degrees, and 189 would be written as 189, okay, as it already has 3 digits. But a bearing has to be written using 3 digits. Now, if you remember those 3 rules, simple bearings questions are really, really easy, okay? So if we remember those 3 rules today, we will be finding this nice and easy. One thing you need to remember, though, when we talk about bearings, and this again is another thing that sometimes people forget, is people need to remember that to never eat shredded wheat. And that's a way of us remembering north, east, south, west. Okay? This will go round clockwise, never eat shredded wheat. If you remember that, that will help you with some questions that we'll see later on in the bearings unit. Okay? So we always measure from north, we always measure clockwise, and we always write a bearing with 3 digits. So let's look at some questions. First off, I'm going to start just by identifying which angle represents the bearing of B from A. Now, we've got A and B labelled here. We've got a line that joins them, and I've got the north join in both places because we're going to measure from north. Okay. The challenge here is really around the language that's being used. That's how they're going to try and trick you. The first thing you're going to do is find the point where it says from and which point it says. So this says from A. So then on your piece of paper, okay, or in your diagram, you're just going to label A just by putting a ring round it. The place where you've put a ring round is where you start, okay? This is where you are. We are measuring the angle between where you are and where B is. So it's B from A. So if we're at A, what angle between north and B? And so on this, it would just be this angle here that I would measure, okay? Now, let's say that that angle is 50 degrees. I'd write my bearing as 050 degrees because I always write it in 3 digits. Let's look at one more. Again, I'm going to read my question and I want to identify the angle that represents the bearing of D from E. Okay, so I'm going to return to my pen. I'm going to circle E because it's from E, and that means that where north is at E, clockwise, I need to go round until I point towards D. And so this is the bearing of D from E. Okay, now I'm not interested in this smaller angle here because I have to measure clockwise. So this angle will be bigger than 180. So it could be, for instance, let's say 200 degrees. Okay, so the bearing here is 200 degrees. That's of E, so of D from E. Let's look at one more example of this. I want to identify which angle represents the bearing of J from K. And so I'm going to highlight from K, and I'm going to circle K. I'm at K. I want to move clockwise from north until I'm pointing at J. And so this then is the bearing of J from K. Let me do that in a different color to make it really clear for us. Okay, and this one is even bigger than before. This one could potentially be 310 degrees. Okay, again, written in 3 digits. Okay, so I can say that the bearing of J from K is 310 degrees. Always measured from north, always measured clockwise, and always written as 3 digits. Now, we're going to have a look at some kind of more numerical questions where we're given some information. I want to calculate something, but we're going to go through the same process every time. If you want to have a go at these, pause the video and have a go while you're doing it with me. That's absolutely fine, but make sure you watch every example because they're really important you see them. So, we want to calculate the bearing of B from A. It's from A, and so I want to mark on my diagram using my, I need to, my pen. I'm going to circle the point where I start, and I go from north and I go clockwise, and so this is the angle I want. So straight away I can write down that the bearing of B from A is 080 degrees, always written in 3 digits because it's the same angle that I'm given. Another question, feel free to pause it if you'd like to, says to calculate the bearing of D from E. Not sure why that's red, but it's from E, so I circle E. I go from north, I go clockwise until I'm pointing towards D, so I want this angle around the outside. hopefully straight away we should see that to get that angle around the outside, I need to do 360 minus 115 degrees, and that's angles around a point. (360 minus 115 is 245 degrees. And so the bearing of D from E is 245 degrees. One last question. I want to calculate the bearing of J from K. I'm at K, and so I want to move from north clockwise until I get towards J. And here I'm given two pieces of information to try and confuse me. The only one I need is 40 degrees, so I need to do 360 minus 40 degrees and get 320 degrees. So the bearing of J from K is 320 degrees. Okay. If you need any help with this, please do let me know. Otherwise, please have a go at the sheet attached to the assignment. Good luck.